Prophecy Club, and I've got Doug Woodward on the phone with me today. He is, I will say this, a professional in the world of prophecy, a Bible prophecy expert. He speaks all across the nation. He's made like 7 books, been teaching Bible prophecy for some 40 years, and I am excited, very excited to have him on at the Prophecy Club. As a matter of fact, you must come to the meetings this weekend. And there's no charge, guys. There's no reason not to come and hear the topics, the information, and especially the quality of speakers that we have in this weekend. Here's the situation. Saturday, August 10th, Saturday morning from 10 to 1 is going to be Doug. He's going to be speaking on the hidden partnership of America and Nazi Germany. Same day, 2 to 5 p.m., will be Doug Hamp speaking on the injection of the beast. Same day, 7 to 10 p.m., will be Doug Hamp again on the fall feasts in Bible prophecy. Next morning, Sunday morning, August the 11th, 9:30 to noon, Doug Woodward again, speaking on today's plot to make men God. That's at the Spirit of Prophecy Church, Prophecy Club, 2540 K Avenue in Plano. That's on the corner of Park and K, right behind the Whataburger. No charge. That's no reason not to come. Come on out and hear these guys, because I believe your salvation depends on it. Because if you're not informed, you may make a mistake. You may deny Christ. I think those kind of times are right around the corner. So, Doug Woodward, welcome to the Prophecy Club.
Dan, it's a great privilege, a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much.
Tell us a little bit about yourself so that people know that you know what you're talking about. And if they come out, they're not only going to be very impressed, and that you're well informed on Bible prophecy. So, who's Doug Woodward?
I've studied, certainly the Scripture. I've studied Bible prophecy in particular, and have taught throughout that time and researched. And so finally, about 5 years ago, I felt a conviction that it was time for me to start expressing my thoughts and my beliefs in writing. And so I wrote my first book, Are We Living in the Last Days?, which is talk a bit about the different views of prophetic report from the Scriptures, those that, let's say, are more of the liberal persuasion, those that are of the covenantal persuasion, and those that are more of the dispensational point of view. And so I did a book there. I followed it quickly with a book called Decoding Doomsday, which has sold a very healthy number of copies. A lot of people are familiar with me because of that. It was a study on sort of the history of apocalypticism or eschatology, coming down to what is it that the Bible teaches from the perspective that I hold, and why is prophecy important? The last 2 years, I've been focused on the issue of America, the Antichrist. To what extent does America play a role in the coming of Antichrist? How involved is America as the power base of the New World Order? And does America serve as a catalyst to help bring that about? I think it does. I think that, as we often call it, the New World Order, that typically sort of focus on the international banking community that have been really in power in the world over the last 120 years at least, and of course one could argue even for 200 years, that the bankers have really controlled the economies and have moved the world to a single economic system, and they have plans, of course, to make it into a single political system and a single religious system as well.
In terms of what you're going to be speaking on Saturday morning from 10 to 1, the hidden partnership of America and Nazi Germany, on that topic, my first question would be, why do prophecy students in 2013, understanding that we're about to go into a global depression leading up to the fall of America, and then after that, they're going to be pushing really hard toward a new world order. So why do we need to know about the partnership of America and how it ties back to Nazi Germany?
A lot of it is a question of understanding why we are here, so that we might be, why we are here in the sense of how did we get here? What's the history leading up to today? What caused it to come about? The powers that have brought that about are very much still alive and influencing things. And so I think that a lot of this is that we be prepared ourselves to testify what God has done and is doing, and that we would be, in effect, better evangelists, as well as to be prepared ourselves, that we would be thoroughly convinced of what has happened and what is happening, that we would be strong in our testimony.
In October of 2006, we had a lady by the name of Kitty Worthman speak on and make a DVD called Freedom to Dictatorship in 5 Years. And she was growing up living in Poland when Hitler took over. And she writes, and she talked about on this particular DVD, and says that essentially America is walking the same path that Nazi Germany walked in its rise from being a Christian nation up to being the Third Reich. And we're doing the same thing today. Is that a reason why we need to hear this?
Oh, I think so. Of course, there are people that have talked about this and made this comparison. We certainly have a different culture than Germany did in the 1910s, 20s, and so forth. So the American expression of that spirit of Antichrist is going to be a bit different than it was in Nazi Germany. But certainly some of the major factors, such as the increased amount of control that the central government has, we certainly see it in our news in the last just few weeks with the whole issue of the NSA and the surveillance. So we see a sort of Big Brother type of scenario that has really been going on actually I believe for decades. I think it's just kind of coming to our attention. So you have the surveillance state. Then you have the issue of is the church able to be prophetic? One of the key things that Hitler did to assure his success and his rise to power was to co-opt the church in Germany, both the Catholic Church and the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Germany. And he co-opted it by describing a type of faith that separated personal belief and morality from social impact, social issues, and really issues that they got into, such as the Holocaust, the murder of millions of not just Jews but Christians, the decrepit. Co-opting the church, it really kept the church of the government's business.
How does the connection with America and Germany relate to us?
The programs that Germany was implementing in the 1920s that led up to the Holocaust, many of their ideas really came from and were inspired by Americans. If we were to start to tick off some of these ideas, we certainly hear a lot about the Aryan race. We know that Germany was emphasizing the Aryan race in terms of it was the preferred race. And Germany set about the task of targeting those that were decrepit, that were elderly, undesirable. And so they focused on the Aryan, sort of blonde-haired, blue-eyed type of people, and that's what they were seeking to purify the race in order to make the German race more godlike.
I understand why they would want to get rid of what they call today useless weeds in society. I understand why they don't want to have, just like the Obamacare. I mean, that's where it's really heading. We're talking about getting rid of all of the useless people in society. That's what they'd call them, people that cannot pull their own weight or even add to society. However, I don't understand why they would focus on one particular blonde hair, blue eye, or one particular race and call that the greatest race. Is that some kind of arrogance trying to get? I mean, the whole objective, they were heading to war and they were trying to create a new world order.
Well, there's a couple of reasons. One was that they had a mystical belief, that the Aryan race was the superior race coming out of Atlantis. So they believed in the mythology associated with Atlantis. They believed that this blonde-haired, blue-eyed race was created and came to Earth. There's several different threads that they talk about. One of them is even a race that came out of the hollow Earth. But always they believed that this was the superior race, and this was the race that was most godlike. They had a great number of myths, of Norse myths, and the Edda, the stories of mythology that talked about giants and talked about this race of humankind that was superior. And so their thinking was that they needed to purify the race. They needed to kill the Jews, who they considered to be an inferior race. So that was part of it. One of the things I'd point out, though, is that America was very involved in this ideology. We didn't call it the Aryan race. We called this white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed race the Nordics. It's amazing that even in 1902, David Starr Jordan, who was the president of Stanford, he actually created the phrase race and blood. And so the notion of genetic capability or genetic encoding was sort of in the blood, and it was an American idea. Even the notion of the gas chamber was actually developed in America to help eliminate the so-called feeble-minded. There was a guy that worked in the U.S. Army, a guy named Paul Popenoe, in 1918, actually created the idea of the gas chamber, and there's more along those lines. So let me pause for a moment.
Was Nazi Germany really heading toward creating the hybrids and the New World Order and the Antichrist and things like that. Is that the reason they had so much genetics involved, or was it for something else?
Of course, it specifically was to put Germany in the driver's seat, and they believed that the German race was the sort of incarnation of these demigods that once existed in the world. You may be aware that Heinrich Himmler was responsible for an organization called the Ahnenerbe. And the Ahnenerbe became a massive organization specifically focused on legends to uncover the nature and the key to this race to make the German people godlike, that make them capable of ruling. They sent Ernst Schaeffer off to the Himalayas, the story of the 7 years in Tibet, Brad Pitt did. That was part of the plan to see if they could discover the origin and where the Aryan race had come to Earth. They thought that this was part of a myth they called fire and ice, and that the Aryan race came to Earth in the Himalayas. And so they were trekking around the Himalayas trying to discover if this was so and when this occurred and so forth. So they were striving very much to create a race of individuals, of people that would bring greatness back to Germany. And so a big part of their problem was separating the races and attempting to eradicate any race that would keep them from achieving this objective.
Why do we today need to understand what happened in World War II?
There's, of course, many different facets to this. I think that Americans have been generally lulled into sleep, believing that our government is what it sort of purports to be, that it is a representative democracy, that it does bend to the will of the people, and that it is conducting its business for our good.
We'll be right back after this message. The Prophecy Club is having 2 expert Bible prophecy speakers giving 4 talks over Saturday and Sunday, August 10th and 11th. Doug Woodward, author of 7 books, has been teaching Bible prophecy for 40 years. Doug Hamp, 3 books, teaching prophecy for 10 years. Doug Woodward is going to speak Saturday, August 10th from 10 to 1 p.m. on the hidden partnership of America and Nazi Germany. Then, same day, 2 to 5 p.m., Doug Hamp will speak on the injection of the beast. Then, same day, 7 to 10 p.m., Doug Hamp will speak again on the fall feasts in Bible prophecy. Then Sunday morning, August the 11th, 9:30 to noon, Doug Woodward will speak on today's plot to make men God. That's at the Prophecy Club, Spirit of Prophecy Church, 2540 Avenue K in Plano, on the corner of Park and K behind the Whataburger. No charge. See you there! Daniel Daves made a DVD called I Saw the Dollar Dead. He's a missionary from Costa Rica, and he had a 3-part dream I really believe is of God. He was shown the death of the U.S. dollar, its global impact, and that all property lines will be dissolved, the rise of the one world government and its following currency. Lindsey Williams has made a new DVD called Cyprus, the Elite Money Grab. Topics are Cyprus, the startling real story. The American dollar, how long? Healthcare, a trap. America, the world's only hope. Saudi Arabia, look out. Iran, saber rattling. Derivatives, collapse being discussed. It's called the Money Gift Offer. Both DVDs valued at $60 for a gift to the ministry of just $25 or more. 785-266-1112 or prophecyclub.com. The Money Gift Offer. And now, back to the program.
And that it is conducting its business for our good. Unfortunately, that's just really not true. The government is very restricted. What we observe, it's very restricted as to what it can do. The real power behind the scenes, what we call the elite, the Illuminati, the central bankers to a great extent, certain very, very large corporate concerns. Part of this is driven by the fact that we believe the truth will set you free. The truth will enable you to witness the reality of Jesus Christ and to the reality of the kingdom of God. We are living in a kind of like the movie The Matrix illustrated. We're living in an unreality, and everything about this unreality tries to enforce us to stay inside it. And so we're aware of what's really happening. And so a lot of what we're trying to do, I think, is to wake people up so that they can be witnesses to the truth and they can demonstrate the power of Christ in their daily lives.
So how does eugenics play a role in this?
Eugenics, first off, just a definition of it, it's certainly an old term. It essentially meant being well-bred. It was a pseudoscience that was developed in the late 1880s, 1890s, in America primarily first, and then it spread from America to Germany. There are several key families that had a huge impact upon building this particular view of sort of power of social engineering. Certainly the Rockefellers were involved in creating what's called Cold Springs Harbor, which was a facility to study eugenics, to keep vast records of them. And so the Rockefellers were involved. The Harrimans were very involved. The Harrimans, the great railroad family, Averell Harriman and William B. Harriman and others, were involved in the establishment of this program. And it led, of course, to over 27 states during the first part of the 20th century that passed laws to deny the right of reproduction to anyone that they determined were feeble-minded. Feeble-minded was never really defined, but nevertheless, there were literally almost 60,000 people that were sterilized as part of this program. There was a key Supreme Court decision in 1927, Buck versus Bell, that the Honorable Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr., one of the top Supreme Court justices, actually made the statement in the legal opinion, 3 generations of imbeciles is enough. And it turns out that the opinions of Americans were actually even quoted by Hitler in Mein Kampf, which was published in 1925. And then in the Nuremberg trials after the war, in which the Nazis were being held to account, they attempted to cite American opinions such as Holmes, justifying that forced sterilization was in fact acceptable and it was appropriate in civilization. And so the Americans actually provided that. Now, of course, the tribunal denied that they would allow that information, but to be used as a defense. Nevertheless, it was something that was brought to the foreground.
How were they sterilizing these people? Is this a simple pill, an injection, or is this actually flesh being
surgery.
cut?
It was surgery. So it was that was causing this to come to pass. So obviously,
I understand on a man.
Surgeries for men and women, of course.
Okay, I understand on a man. A man's surgery is not going to be too difficult, castration there, but the women, that's not so easy. Are you telling me that they did some kind of tubal ligation? What did they do?
That's my understanding, is that they would do that kind of procedure. Sometimes it was accompanied by not just surgery, but sequestration, isolating those that they deemed to be undesirable.
Don't you think that's coming in Obamacare also?
The proponents would deny it, but on the other hand, the things that we're seeing today are increasing the power of the government to take even more radical steps. Certainly the government is using its leverage against any type of religious organization, the 501(c), the ability to be a not-for-profit organization. The contributions can be obviously made tax deductible. The government is using that as a means to leverage anti-Christian stance in a variety of issues, and certainly this whole issue of race and of birth control. It's a big part of what is happening. So I certainly can't say that as it stands today that Obamacare has that intent, but it's just like the NSA, basically tracking so-called just macro data on our telephones. I certainly believe that they're tracking more than that. I suspect that they're recording every single phone call that at their fingertips if they need it. So they're making it convenient for any type of totalitarian policy or program to come into effect.
Well, we have information that not only for years now, as in like 20 years, they have been recording every communication, not just phone calls, faxes, emails. It's all recorded, and that's a whole other program right there, but I can give the information. Not only that, but they also, through satellites, have a recording of every second and every square inch of the United States and probably much of the rest of the world. In other words, one of the things that, and the reason, one of the other reasons that confirms this is in Afghanistan, when there's a car bomb, all they do is go to the recordings and they track back where that car came from, and then they go hit that house. Okay, it's all tracked and monitored and recorded. So it's just a matter of what information do they want. And the reason is I believe they're trying to bring every person on the globe down to one basic decision, and that is either you take the mark or you lose your head.
The technology is there to do that. I believe that it may, in fact, have already been employed, just like you're suggesting. So I would not say that you're wrong. I don't have the data that you do, of course, that suggests that this, in fact, is being carried out. I just know that it's certainly capable. The technology is there to do this. And unfortunately, our government seems to be moving that direction for increased control, of course.
Absolutely. Okay. You're going to be speaking this weekend, and so would you take a couple of minutes and tell them what you're going to be speaking about and just encourage them to come on out?
The main topic in the first session is providing insights into what it was that America and Germany were doing leading up to both World War I and afterwards. How did America influence what happened in World War II, both financially, certainly in the run up to the war? Can talk a great deal about how much America actually financed the Nazi regime. So we can talk a bit about that. We'll talk about also this issue of the hybridization of the human race, both initially just the sort of purification of it, and then we'll eventually get into the issue of transhumanism and what it is that is going on in science to improve the race through engineering in the laboratory. And we'll also talk about the possibility that there is angelic incursion in what's happening in the world even today. This is akin to Genesis 6, when the sons of God looked upon the daughters of men and found them desirable, and actually created a race of giants that we know as the Nephilim. And so there's even, of course, activity in that area, that question as to whether or not that in fact is happening. And I certainly have some discussions and evidence with a variety of counselors and people that work with the survivors of even this angelic incursion. So we'll talk a bit about that as well.
Now, another thing they probably should know, you and Rob Skiba and also Doug Hamp are all three good friends, heard each other on the prophecy speaking circuit. And the point is, I know people are probably saying, oh, wait a minute. Didn't we already hear this last month from Rob Skiba and maybe the month before? So I think that it's important for them to know that you bring new information or from a different angle or at a different depth level. In other words, you're not repeating what the other two guys have said.
No, and what I'm providing, I think, is a lot of the historical facts that show you that what is happening is a sort of a conclusion of what has been underway for the last 150 years. So I'm showing you how it's led to this so that the folks that come will understand that this is true from a variety of perspectives. Certainly Rob and Doug have done a fabulous job of going back and looking into the scriptures and talking about the possibility of this. I will provide both historical and some scientific explanation as to why it is, in fact, come to pass, as well as then I have some sort of unique perspectives on the issue of mind control, on the issue of how our government has taken steps that are absolutely evil to create individuals that have the capability to be assassins, and that they have likely already been deployed to accomplish some of these things.
Are you trying to say like
it's a very wide
Columbine?
scale, a very giant program that's been going on since the 1950s.
Are you trying to say like Columbine and the Amish school shooting and the Newtown shooting, that those are actually a high probability that those are pre-programmed people to go in and do this?
Yeah, it absolutely fits the pattern. It fits the type of training, and it fits the data that we are seeing. The individuals, the James Holmes that went in a year ago and shot up the theater at the Batman movie. There are a variety of factors that suggest that such individuals are a result of this mind control program. And so that is a good part of what I'll talk about is what is the psychological basis? How is it done? What is the objective? How long has it been going on? So I'll spend a considerable amount of time on that. And I this last weekend when I spoke, I had yet again, each time I speak on this subject, I have one or two counselors come up. They tell me about the kinds of people they're working with. They tell me about their background, and it's a fascinating confirmation. I usually have one or two, we'll either call them victors or survivors. They prefer to be called survivors. This type of mind control programming, either from the perspective of satanic ritual abuse, or from the perspective of what the government has done to employ technology and the research that they've done to facilitate a mind control of individuals. I should point out, of course, Stan, that mind control has it's a multi-layered monster, if you will, and it affects all of us. What the agenda of the government is certainly is to lull us all into sleep so that we just become good workers and sort of the beehive. And so I'll talk a bit about how that has been put into place across the country and why it's still a factor today and how it's affecting us today.
Okay, folks, once again, it's this Saturday. That's August 10th. There's going to be 3 talks on Saturday, 1 talk on Sunday. So Doug Woodward will be speaking on the hidden partnership of America and Nazi Germany, Saturday, August 10th, 10 to 1. Same day, 2 to 5 p.m., Doug Hamp, different person, the injection of the beast, and the fall feast of prophecy that evening from 7 to 10. Then, Sunday morning, August 11th, 9:30 to noon, Doug Woodward again on today's plot to make men God. There's no charge and no reason not to come. You need to get yourself informed and understand what is coming. It's at the Prophecy Club, Spirit of Prophecy Church, location 2540 Avenue K in Plano. That's on the corner of Park and K, like Parquet the Margin, right behind the Whataburger. No charge and no reason not to come. That's this Saturday and Sunday. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your prayers, and thank you for your gifts of support. God bless.
Prayerfully consider supporting the Prophecy Club with your gifts of support. We would not be here without your prayers and generous financial support.
Now from the Prophecy Club, some exciting opportunities for you. The Prophecy Club is having 2 expert Bible prophecy speakers giving 4 talks over Saturday and Sunday, August 10th and 11th. Doug Woodward, author of 7 books, has been teaching Bible prophecy for 40 years. Doug Hamp, 3 books, teaching prophecy for 10 years. Doug Woodward is going to speak Saturday, August 10th from 10 to 1 p.m. on the hidden partnership of America and Nazi Germany. Then, same day, 2 to 5 p.m., Doug Hamp will speak on the injection of the beast. Then, same day, 7 to 10 p.m., Doug Hamp will speak again on the fall feasts in Bible prophecy. Then Sunday morning, August the 11th, 9:30 to noon, Doug Woodward will speak on today's plot to make men God. That's at the Prophecy Club, Spirit of Prophecy Church, 2540 Avenue K in Plano, on the corner of Park and K behind the Whataburger. No charge. See you there! In the Rob Skiba gift offer, his first DVD is Mythology, UFOs, and the Coming Great Deception. Topics are Sumerian, Egyptian, and Greek pantheons, the Coming Great Deception, UFOs and aliens, interdimensional portals, transhumanism, and the quest to be like gods, giants and hybrids. And in Babylon Rising, the topics are the signs in the heavens, Babylon in the last days, New World Order conspiracies, secret societies, and the occult's obsession with the numbers 322, tetrads or blood red moons in the eclipses in the days ahead, the feasts of God and how they relate to the last days, the tribulation survival plan, and 2045, the year man becomes immortal. Topics will be Genesis 6 Nephilim, hybrid humans, war with hybrids, hybrids among us, the injection of immortality. All 3 DVDs valued at $90, available for a gift of just $50 at prophecyclub.com. The Prophecy Club is having a summer blowout. You get 6 DVDs of your choice valued at $180 for a gift of $100. Not available on the internet. You gotta call 785-266-1112 to place your order. That's 6 Prophecy Club DVDs for a gift of $100. Call 785-266-1112. Get yourself informed. Don't let the tricks of the devil deceive you. Get 6 DVDs for a gift of $100. Call 785-266-1112.